Hello, hello, and welcome to the Daily Faded. My name is Hess. This is my nightly live stream on news and politics, and of course, cannabis. Hi there, I was waiting for you. Well, not really. Sort of. I don't know. You know what I was just thinking is that this is a really hard experience, this COVID-19 pandemic on most people, but there is a certain comforting quality for the stoners out there. I know hospital admissions are going down, and I know that ICU beds, people in ICU beds are going down, and intubations are going down, and things like that. The death toll is still remarkable. And here in California, we have 46,000 cases and 1,862 deaths in California, which is up almost 5%. Yeah, we're just kind of really starting to hit our peak in deaths here in California. I would not, it's going well in that our cities haven't become completely overrun and useless. But anyway, moving along. So two new people. I've got a lot of different things to talk about tonight. I'm not going to talk about Trump very much tonight. He didn't do a daily news briefing today, thank goodness. He did do two other events where there were reporters present. And he said a couple of things at those two events. I don't know, maybe I'll get into it, maybe I won't. But it was nice to not have the press briefing as it has been happening, which is just a propaganda fest. So, but these other two, one was with Ron DeSantis, and the other one was with Ivanka and Steve Mnuchin. Anyway, annoying. But two new people have come forward to corroborate Tara Reade's accusation against Joe Biden. So I think that further complicates the issue to anyone who's paying attention or cares or is morally consistent on the issue of believing women. Tara Reade's apartment neighbor from 1993 has come forward and said that she remembers Tara Reade telling her the story and telling her about what happened with Joe Biden. And one of Tara Reade's colleagues working for Biden in 1993 came forward and said that she was surprised when Tara Reade left, but Tara Reade told her that she had tried to do something about being harassed by Biden and had been fired as a result. So those are two more people lending credence to Tara Reade's story, to Tara Reade's accusation against Joe Biden. At this point, we have more people on the record who can corroborate that Tara Reade told her story. We have more people corroborating it than we had corroborating Christine Blasey Ford, I believe. If I'm wrong in the details, feel free to let me know in the comments section. And I think she should be taken as seriously as we took Christine Blasey Ford, who I took 100% seriously. Rising on the Hill TV on YouTube has been covering this really well. Moving on, I don't have much more to say about that because I've said an awful lot about Joe Biden already, and I think he's a terribly weak candidate. I think part of the reason he's a weak candidate is because he was never properly vetted. The media never really investigated him. They looked under every rock they could look under for Bernie Sanders, but Joe Biden, all these problems, they didn't talk about the fact that he lied about being arrested with shockingly close to, and when it was adjusted down to 60 people dying, Trump was doing an end zone dance about it. And now, last week, it was moved back up to 67,000 deaths. And today, the model has gone all of states reopening and the effect that those reopenings are going to have. So now we're going to find out how accurate this model is. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. The World Health Organization warned today that there is no evidence that antibodies to COVID-19 provide immunity. There's no evidence that having had COVID-19 gives you immunity against the virus. And that was something that came out of the WHO today, which I think is an important thing to keep in mind, because people keep talking about having immunity if they've had and survived COVID-19, but they may not have immunity. We don't know yet. And I'm only going to hit this lightly because it, again, is familiarly tread material, which is the Washington Post reported that there were over a dozen times that the intelligence communities directly warned Trump in the presidential daily briefing in January and February. Over a dozen times, the intelligence communities directly warned Trump that this pandemic was a threat to national security. So just file that in the category of Trump being an idiot and an asshole and all the other things that Trump is. Speaking of Trump, hold on a sec. Oh my God, this is so sad. Please stay right there. I will be back in 2 seconds. It's a miracle. It's a Trump administration miracle. God, I can't let the show stop. Anyway, thank you for sticking around. So I actually have a lot from the New York Times today. I read the Times every morning, and there's some great reporting that happens in the Times, and I do think it can be relied on for some straight reporting. But they also often bend things and twist things and fit it into a particular narrative. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin said on Tuesday that companies that received more than $2 million in small business loans would be audited by the Small Business Administration and could face criminal liability if it turns out they were not eligible to apply for the relief money. Mr. Mnuchin's comments came as backlash grows over big publicly traded companies taking millions of dollars in loans, while small businesses have been left going to maintain complete transparency. Yet he hasn't spoken about it in public since the CARES Act was signed. It's almost as if they're using the Small Business Administration loans to distract us from something else, like the way that they're looting the Fed. I'm very curious about where all that Fed money is going, much more curious than about the small business loans. I mean, I'm curious about the small business loans too. By the way, there's one other thing about these small business loans. I saw some people on Twitter going on and on about companies that have connections to Trump or supported Trump or whatever, getting small business loans. If Trump is funneling loans to people who support him and leaders coming up and talking, it was bizarre. It was in the East Room of the White House, and they actually socially distanced, so that was strange. Except for Trump from Ivanka, so that was strange too. But anyway, they just brought small business people up who got loans, who have their businesses saved, and they said thank you to the president, and it was another dog and pony show. Now hold on one sec. I'm having all kinds of problems tonight, you guys. I've lost my mojo. I don't know what's going on. Sorry about that. Next story. Been a lot of interruptions and breaks in this stream. Sorry about that. I'm actually going to read you a story from Fox News. That's the extra special treat tonight. And I looked at it on Fox News because I was curious to see how it was being reported there. It was being reported in many places. There may be more than 15,000 excess deaths linked to coronavirus in the United States, a study says. I actually think this may be some of the biggest news of the day. The U.S. may have underreported the number of people who died from the coronavirus pandemic by as many as 15,000 people as late as April 4th, a new published study suggests. The research, which has not yet been peer-reviewed and is available to read online, notes that there was a substantial variability in the deaths reported because of COVID-19 and the, quote, estimated burden of excess deaths due to pneumonia and influenza, known as P&I. Excess P&I deaths provide a conservative estimate of COVID-19 burden and indicate that COVID-19 related deaths are missed in locations with inadequate testing or intense pandemic activity, the researchers wrote. According to an investigation from the Washington Post and Yale University, there were 15,400 excess deaths from March 1st to April 4th. By that date, just 8,128 deaths were linked to COVID-19. Certain states were specifically mentioned, including New Jersey and New York, largely driven by New York City, as well as Georgia, Illinois, and Washington, for having a, quote, notable increase in the proportion of total deaths due to pneumonia and influenza than what would be expected based off the time of year and influenza activity. So they're doing their surveillance for pneumonia and influenza, and they're saying, whoa, wait a second. This is way more people than should have been dying from pneumonia and influenza. In some states, such as Florida and Georgia, the increase in deaths due to P&I preceded the widespread as before they started testing widely. As a result, the increase in P&I preceded the first COVID-19 deaths, and the excess P&I was greater than the number of reported COVID-19 deaths each week. In contrast, in Washington state, there was concordance between reported COVID-19 deaths, excess P&I deaths, and the increase in testing. So this means that there are a lot more people who have died from this disease than the 59,000 that we're talking about tonight. Sometimes in the middle of the day, I will look at the charts and I'll look at the numbers and I'll just be struck by how many people are dying. And even I, who claim to value all lives equally and worry about people dying in countries that we've invaded, I'm still more affected by Americans dying than non-Americans dying. I think we all are. I think it's a natural instinct. And this is just catastrophic, you know. And anytime Trump tries to claim that he's done a good job, anytime Trump tries to wiggle out of the responsibility for this, is just a lie. This country has handled the pandemic worse than any other country on the planet. We're the country with the most deaths. We're the country with the most infections. We're not the largest country in the world. Now, maybe by the time this thing is over, India will have will, go flying past us. I don't know. I only pick them randomly as a much larger country. Where we don't get much news. These excess P&I deaths, I think what this brings into sharp relief is that there's so much left to be determined about this outbreak, about this pandemic. Are epidemiologists going to redo the death toll again in a couple of months? And is it going to be 100,000, or 120,000? How many heart attacks were COVID? How many people with renal failure were COVID? Renal failure is something that happens with COVID. How many comorbidities were triggered by COVID? And he got what he wanted. We underreported significantly, and we underreported significantly, and now here we are. The other thing too is that real data has been obscured by Trump's dog and pony show. So it's kind of a good thing that the dog and pony show seems to be almost over. But it was weird how he did 2 events today to try and keep himself on TV, I guess. But someone finally asked him, the first event with Ron DeSantis, when he was taking questions, somebody finally asked him about per capita testing, because we're not first. We may have done the most tests of any country in the world. That may be true. Frankly, I'm not even sure if that's true. But I know that per capita, we are nowhere near the top. And Deborah Birx just twisted the numbers and made something up and made the question go away for Donald Trump, and it was disgusting. And she is a propagandist. But Trump gave bad advice about hydroxychloroquine that was unwarranted. He lied about there's never going to be a second wave. I mean, he represented the likely future falsely, let's put it that way, because he may believe there's not going to be a second wave. He's deranged enough that I think he believes these things. And then he told us to inject bleach. So I will say this. It would make me happy if the moment that everyone remembers about Donald Trump was the time he said that Americans should drink bleach. That history will record that tens of thousands of people were dying, and the president told them to drink bleach or inject bleach or somehow shoot light into the interior of their bodies. So humiliating, and so humiliating for us as a nation. But what I find most unsettling is all the different data, all the different reporting, the propaganda, the quote-unquote fake news, all the distortions and lies, all the bullshit. It's hard to know where we actually are and where we're actually headed, every time someone says it's under control, every time someone says we're getting through it, I just look at that fucking death toll. Now that's a lagging indicator, and cases going down precedes death count going down. I understand that. That makes perfect sense scientifically. But when you have people like Dr. Osterholm from Minnesota, a second wave happens as a result of these openings that are currently going on, and places have to end up closing down longer, and the economic malaise, if that's a strong enough word for it, continues to go on. And with the media, and I'm reliant on the media because all I do is read the media and look at stuff and talk about it. They lied about the Iraq War. They lied about Afghanistan. They lied about 9/11. They said the Iraqis did 9/11. They lied about the financial crisis. They lie about all kinds of things. They lied about Donald Trump definitely being a Russian agent, they were saying over and over and over again for years. Or they just get it wrong. Either way. So I have some moments of anxiety during the day because of this stuff. New York Times, Cuomo says he wishes he blew the bugle on the virus in January. Governor Andrew M. Cuomo of New York said in an interview broadcast Monday night that he wished he had sounded the alarm about the dangers posed by the coronavirus in January before the outbreak exploded in New York. Mr. Cuomo, interviewed on Axios on HBO, suggested that when China said its outbreak was under control, the rest of the world should have raced to make sure that that was the case. Where was everyone, he asked. Maybe the United States was waiting for the World Health Organization, the WHO was waiting for the National Institutes of Health, or somebody was waiting for the UN, I don't know. But I wish someone stood up and blew the bugle, and if no one was going to blow the bugle, I would feel much better if I was a bugle blower last December and January. Hearing that from Cuomo, I felt like it was worth repeating. And again, just because we see real leadership in people who do things that are the opposite of what Donald Trump does, to be able to say, yeah, I should have, he's basically saying I should have recognized it and I should have been the one shouting danger ahead. And that doesn't put aside his previous career. He's a centrist corporate Dem warrior against progressives. He's done everything possible to undermine progressives. He's been challenged by progressives. He just got Medicaid in the middle of a pandemic this evening. Cuomo says homeless people are disgusting. See, that thing that I said about his previous problems haven't gone away? One second. That was a heavy load, y'all. Cuomo says homeless people are disgusting. Governor Andrew M. Cuomo on Tuesday waded into a struggle between New York City and the state agency that runs the city's transit system over the issue of homeless people sleeping on subway trains. At his daily briefing, Mr. Cuomo held up a front-page photo in the Daily News of homeless people camping on subway trains. Quote, "That is disgusting, and what has happened, virus? No, we have to do better than that, and we will." So here's my thing. I don't actually understand what he was saying when he said it was disgusting. Was he saying it was disgusting that the homeless people weren't taken care of, so they were lying on the train? Or was he saying it was disgusting that there were homeless people on the train? I don't actually know. I'm going to have to go back and find that out. There's something else here that I've been thinking about a lot the last day or two, which is we know that the countries that have been successful in tamping down coronavirus, we know that testing and contact tracing is a big part of what they've done. And I've talked a lot about the fact that we don't have enough contact tracers here to do the job that needs to get done. But there's a third leg to that stool, which is, wait a second, a three-legged stool doesn't work, does it? Third leg to that. There's a third leg to that pigeon. There's a third leg to that ATST. It's kind of like R2D2's third leg. Let's go with that. And that's isolation. Because when you test someone and they're positive and you contact trace their contacts, you have to isolate those people. And in China, they just grabbed people and threw them into either hotels or dormitories. I think in Taiwan, they just grabbed people and isolated them. In several countries, they've done that, where they just take someone, you're positive, we're putting you in a hotel room for 14 days or until you test negative twice. And they literally fed them 3 meals a day, and they just left them there. Now, I'm sure in some cases it's nicer than others, but we're not going to do that kind of isolation in the United States, I don't think, under much of any circumstances, at least not right now. And that really does seem to be crucial, because if you go home and give it to your family, and the country starts to reopen, man, I don't know. Scientifically, it seems like just grabbing someone and isolating them seems like the right thing to do. But we do have to hold on to some of our civil rights, Yes, self-quarantine I fully support, and I hope everyone would voluntarily do that who is asked to do that. And I worry a lot when I hear about these frontline workers, doctors and nurses who are in hotel rooms. I worry so much about them living in hotel rooms and not seeing their families in such a stressful time. Look, I hope I'm wrong. I hope we reopen and the deaths go down and the confirmed cases go down. And if there's a second wave in the fall or the winter, it's not that bad. I hope that all that's true. I really do. If I were a praying man, I would pray for it. But as I'm not a praying man, I'll smoke on it. I have one more thing to tell you about, so don't go away. This is like, instead of a commercial break, it's a weed break. I should get like a little little graphic that goes like weed break. That would be annoying. I wouldn't actually do that. The rare Saturday Night Live skit that was very funny. Saturday Night Live from their homes. And it was Brad Pitt doing Dr. Fauci on Saturday Night Live. The Hill had an article, Fauci, Brad Pitt is a classy guy. Anthony Fauci, the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, praised actor Brad Pitt for his impersonation of the public health expert on the latest remote episode of Saturday Night Live. Note, Fauci is now reduced to talking about Saturday Night Live. He's not allowed to talk about the coronavirus, just Saturday Night Live. Quote, I think he did great. I mean, I'm a big fan of Brad Pitt. Or should I say, I think he did great. I mean, I'm a big fan of Brad Pitt. And that's the reason why when people ask me who I would like to play me, I mention Brad Pitt. Okay, my Fauci impression is terrible. Fauci said Monday during an interview on Telemundo's Un Nuevo Dia. He also thanked Pitt for his comments after the impersonation when the actor took off his wig, and thanked the real Dr. Fauci as well as frontline healthcare workers. Quote, I think he showed that he really is a classy guy when at the end he took off his hair and thanked me and all of the healthcare workers, Fauci said. So not only is he a really great actor, but he is actually a classy person. He was looking at me from the front row. Good old times. Anyway, with that, I'm going to say goodnight to y'all. And I hope you have a great evening. Stay home, stay safe, stay well. And I'll see you tomorrow night, 11 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Pacific. Make sure you subscribe and hit the like button. Thank you.